So welcome to Design This, Beyond the Dieline. I'm here with my guest, Robert Lund, who has a background in advertising, branding, creative development, and design strategy. He's been leading the creative departments at some of the most prominent agencies in Europe and the US. Welcome to the show, Lund.
Thank you, man. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So you've headed creative with some major players like McCann Erickson and Crispin Porter, and even Boguski. So now you're deeply involved in cannabis, crypto, and NFTs. Tell us how you made it into the space.
Yeah, that's a short question with probably a terrifyingly long answer. I I spent a pretty long time in the creative industry, as you mentioned. I worked at some great places and some weird places, and I had the privilege to work at one of the best agencies in the world back in Stockholm, Sweden, where I'm from, and I just like it was the first time where sort of everything worked for me. I didn't realize at that time, but like creativity is basically something that you have inside you. It's like being tall or being short or whatever. So, and just to be able to work in the creative industry was amazing for me. And then, we were lucky enough to do a bunch of work that got a bit of attention over here. So job offers started coming in, and it was America. So just like I threw myself in it too. And so I came here in 2012, fresh off the boat. Didn't understand anything about the American corporate system, ran into all the walls, pretty cliche start, I would probably say. And, but learned a lot, and it was a lot of fun too. So, but I sort of realized that after a few years, I was at a few different agencies, and, it was really interesting, and I got to work with some amazing people, and got to work at some places I really wanted to work at. But I felt like the higher I sort of came, moved upwards in the pyramid, the less the work was actually about solving problems with creativity, and the more the work became of being a politician.
Yeah, it's politics at the top, right?
Yeah, it's politics internally, it's politics externally with clients, and that's just the way it works. And I sort of realized that I'm I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a politician. And that's not what I'm good at. And I realized that I'm like, there's no way to go here, because above where I am, it just becomes more politics and less creativity. So it was a little bit of an existential crisis, kind of, professionally, like, and I, at that point, becoming an entrepreneur seemed to be the solution to it. I knew I wanted to get into cannabis, but this was back in 2015. So, and I didn't want to leave New York, and it was before it was decriminalized here, and there was no real cannabis industry over here, and I didn't want to leave. So I started a cannabis infused skincare company, based with hemp and CBD, and that was fun. I learned that was like the first thing that I actually built from the ground up, and I learned a lot about that, and I just realized I even more wanted into the real cannabis industry, because you're on the fringes. You work with in contact with growers and people who process the plants and stuff like that. So I'm like, all right. And COVID came, and COVID wiped away a lot of things for a lot of people. And same thing for me. So when 2021 was about to start, I was basically looking for new things to do. And the skincare company still exists, but it's like it's a side project now, basically. And I got in touch with this guy who had a cannabis infused product he had been working on, and he presented it to me, and I was like, that seems like a very, very good idea, because at the same time, I've been an avid user of the plant since I was like 15, like most people in the industry.
Yeah.
And especially coming over here, I'm like, guys, your weed is way too strong, man. Like it's too strong for me. It's like I just freak out, you know.
Man, did you go straight
Um,
to California or what?
yeah, yeah, but you know, and all the stuff, all the stuff here in New York, like it's the Colorado, California stuff, you know. So I
Yeah.
was just like, what? And it took a while. Like it took a couple of years before I'm like, something is weird, you know. Like
Hmm.
I started experimenting. So I got my hands on some CBD weed, and I started rolling my joints with like a tiny little nugget of like the crazy strong American THC weed. And then I
Okay.
just filled it out with CBD weed. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is
Hmm.
way better for me. And his idea, funnily enough, was his product they had was basically based around low to medium levels of THC and high levels of CBD. And I was like, this is how I smoke my joints. So I know that I love this product.
Hmm.
So we started talking about it. He had done a bunch of research. He's an ex hedge fund guy, so
Hmm.
he likes his research. And he had a really, really, you know, intelligent thesis about next gen cannabis products and
Hmm.
where the puck might be moving. And he needed someone who understood branding and who was a little bit more of a radical brand person, maybe than let's say classic branding agencies.
Yeah.
So, and that turned out to be me. And now we're here a year and a half later, and last week our cannabis infused green tea lemonades made it onto the shelf in at
Amazing.
Green Goddess in Venice. So that's our first dispensary for the drinks.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been a wild ride, and now we're here. So we're in the market, and yeah,
That's
that's sort
beautiful.
of how it started, and also a little bit of where we are.
Very cool. So, do you see overlap between like what we're learning in crypto and NFTs and what's happening in cannabis?
There's a lot of similarities between the two industries, I think, and I mean, I don't really know where to start, but for one, is you know we're coming out of a cycle where everything has been at all time high for probably a little bit too long, right?
Yeah.
And things are starting to moving in the opposite direction, and
Hmm.
nobody knows what's going to happen. But
Yeah, of course.
I feel that maybe the party's over for now, a little bit.
Hmm.
That wouldn't be too surprising. And what I see in like cannabis and crypto, those two industries, they're just budding basically. They haven't started to scale yet. So
Yeah.
that's a thing that's in common with them, that both of them are future industries, they're future growth.
Hmm.
And you know, institutions either they haven't started or they're not allowed to start investing heavily in it.
Hmm.
So that's one interesting aspect. The cannabis industry as well as the crypto industry also have had some problems fairly recently as well. You
Hmm.
know, there's it's hard to make, you know, the profit margins on the flower, for example, doesn't really seem to be what the investors thought it was going to be a few years ago. Crypto's had some setbacks too, but all this is expected because these are new industries, and you
Hmm.
know they're basically the industries are basically they're run by enthusiasts. So
Yeah.
of course, going to be some growing pains. But so on that aspect, I think it's similar. There's also a weird, well, maybe not so weird, but it's also a clear connection between people who love NFTs and that sort of NFT community thinking and people who love cannabis. Because like the
Yeah.
whole thing is like smoking weed, buying NFTs, like that's now sort of a standard a little bit, it seems like. And
Yeah.
I feel like from a philosophical standpoint, there's some other things. Both of them are sort of, I wouldn't say anti-government, but you know what I mean. It's like
Hmm. Yeah.
it's a little bit, you know, it's
Traditional.
underground, and
Hmm.
so they share that as well. So yeah, there's a lot of overlap between the two industries, which is yeah, which is actually why we decided to be in both.
Okay. Beautiful. And one thing I found really interesting, let's take a dive into your Studio TBD All Access membership token.
Hmm.
So you're offering access to your limited edition products and token gated services and events.
Yeah.
But what I want to know is about how it functions and as a min pass for Studio TBD Shadow Project.
Yes. So I feel that NFTs, we talked about this just a little bit just before we started the recording, but like the purpose of NFTs is always in debate. Like, what is blockchain basically? And I think the whole thing with digital ownership, like real digital ownership, that's just so fascinating. It's because it's never existed before, and we felt strongly that we needed to make Web3 part of what we do. So instead of just being a cannabis company, we decided that, all right, so we're a creative studio that creates cannabis products, cannabis infused products specifically, and Web3 initiatives. And because of how our products are sort of what they are, because they're designed for the more of the mainstream audience instead of the, let's say, heavy consumers that most products are designed for. So we also knew that we will need an event series basically, and we needed to also wrap that around something that made sense. And being a brand person, you're always looking for some sort of cultural connection, right? And cannabis has had a very strong cultural connection over the last, let's say, 20 years in like rap music and that world. Maybe we felt like, all right, but maybe that is starting to, I mean, those guys are, together with Willie Nelson and all those old school guys, like they're really pioneers and trailblazers in like taking this plant and infusing it into a big pop culture movement, like over decades, right? This is not a small thing.
When you're looking back at it, it's really amazing, right?
Like, it's pretty crazy.
Music plays such a big part in all of this.
Yeah, it did, from like the Summer of Love and onwards, basically. And I feel like legalization, like they didn't have a choice after a while, because now it's like ingrained in the culture. How can you have something illegal that's ingrained in the culture? If you ask someone in the Supreme Court, they would say, well, that goes against everything we believe in. So like the whole, that cultural fit for cannabis has, I guarantee you that it has helped legalization enormously. And but it might also at the same time be time for a new story. So we were thinking about it, and we basically felt that what's happening in the Web3 community is so interesting, because it's basically raw creativity. Yes, there's a bunch of scams, and yes, there's, you can find a bunch of things to complain about, but I'm not really interested in doing that. If you look at it, what it is, it's pure creativity. You can just make something and put it on chain, and if it connects with people, it's going to work. And it's not the JPEG that carries the value, it's what it represents. It's like that people are complaining about that. It's like, I'm like, well, but you're perfectly fine with paying $600 for a pair of sneakers that cost $750 to make, just because it says something on them, right? Like everyone thinks that's completely normal, right? So this is the same thing. It's like it's wearables, it's digital ownership. So when we sort of got that far to really understand the underlying philosophy and technology of everything, we're like, well, we have to get into this. And we started. I had a story in my head that we started developing, and I just felt like we can't rush this out. This is too good. So instead of rushing it out and building a bunch of characters and trying to compete with people who are only doing their NFT project, I'm like, that's just not going to work. So we decided that instead of doing that, we will release a membership token, so an ERC 1155, non-unique, but there's only going to be 10,000 of them, but they all look the same. And if the holders of that token will be getting a lot of benefits, and right now it's 50% off all purchases in our online store, because we also make cannabis infused edibles where the THC is hemp derived, which means that and they're coming in under the 0.3% per dry weight law, which means that our hemp derived edibles are basically federally legal. They're technically CBD gummies, even though they really, they're pretty potent. So we're selling them.
You can ship them anywhere.
We can technically ship them to any state. There are CBD laws in a lot of states that says that you can't sell CBD in different ways in a lot of states. So what we have decided to do is to stay on the correct side of the law that's as far as we can. So we're shipping to 13 states online. California, New York, Florida, Oregon being, obviously on that list. So most major states are on the list, and then the states of the South, except Florida, are not on the list. But so we can ship to 13 states from the web store, and if you have a token, one or more tokens, you get 50% off forever, basically. As soon as we control the sort of the point of retail, if it's a physical store or if it's an online store, as soon as it's ours, all our membership holders will get 50% off everything forever. So we're doing that right now. So that's a clear benefit that you already have. And then, like you mentioned, they also function as a mint pass for the upcoming Shadow project. It's the character project, which will be a storytelling project that we're developing right now. So that's also the only way to get those characters.
I love it. I love it. That's exactly like the structure that I think most businesses will adopt moving forward. And so you said something earlier. I'm not sure if our audience caught it, but you said it might be time for a new story for Canvas. And that really resonated with me because I was like, wow, like what better way to say that, So I think that what excites me about Web3 is what you were saying about how limitless it is creatively. And it allows creatives to really like build anything that they want or can imagine. And then with blockchain, NFTs, crypto in general, it gives you the technical ability to make it function and tie it to things that are a little bit more tangible, the same way that you're doing right now with your token pass. I think that's beautiful. And so it answers yes, maybe it is time for a new story, and Web3 might enable us the creative ability to tell it in a way that it's never been told before.
Exactly. That's beautifully put. That's exactly what I feel. That's the interesting part with Web3 is like you can make whatever you want. And I mean, I'm old enough to remember a time before the internet, and when the internet sort of broke through and really became relevant was when it connected itself to the physical world. I have this weird story. I was going to the movies in Stockholm in the 90s, a long time ago. And they had just released that you could buy tickets online. So I bought movie tickets online using like a credit card. And I'm like, all right. But then I was like, then I still have to stand in line to like get the ticket from the thing, This is stupid. But I guess now that, I actually have the tickets now, so that's good. And then I walked into the movie theater and they had put up these little machines where you could just dip your credit card and it spat out the tickets that you already paid for. And saying this now, it sounds like, what is he talking about? Like there are QR codes. I'm like, no, this is like 1996, And when I stood there and it spat out those tickets, I'm like, oh shit, the internet's going to explode. Like, I'm like, because that's like real value,
Yeah.
Like that saved me so much time. And I'm like, when that's something as stupid as a movie theater ticket, like, all right, so that, and I think that's sort of what happened as well. Like it connected itself to the physical world and then it just took off. And it's a little bit the same thing with social media, I feel, and digital advertising. That was just like, all right, there's banners and there's this, and it's not really interesting. But then as soon as some agencies started like connecting, the interactive aspect with the physical world, then it became really sexy and really interesting. Instead of just like playing something with something on the screen, it's like, well, you affect something here.
That part is that's what makes it so real. And that's
I think so too. The physical aspect.
Absolutely.
100%. So that's our first little dabble in that is the 50% off our edibles. So, it's not even as sophisticated as the movie theater ticket
Yeah.
machine, but it's something.
Yeah.
It's a start.
Yeah, no, I love it. I think it's a step in the right direction. I'm excited every time I hear a company talking about how to bridge that gap
Mm.
because I think that's the future. So
Yeah.
congratulations. That's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we have like I don't know the numbers now, but we have a few hundred members already. So that's excellent. And like
Hmm.
people from all over the world. And that's another thing we've seen. Like there's people from countries where cannabis is so illegal that there's no way that they can get their hands on any. But then
Hmm.
they can buy our membership token, and now they're like at least sort of a part of the cannabis industry,
Hmm.
and actually sort of an not an accredited investor, but still like they're invested in it, you know.
Hmm. And
So I
who
feel
knows
like
who they might meet along the way? Maybe some new friends that
exactly,
maybe
and I
need the
feel
same
like that's
token.
yeah, that's the whole like borderless thing with blockchain as well. That's
Hmm.
the borderless ownership and borderless trade is just it's people don't understand how big that is because like
Hmm.
I remember way back when I'm like, I want to buy you know shares of Microsoft or Apple. It's like that was basically impossible
Hmm.
like back way back in the day. But now it's like now it's normal. Everybody just takes it for granted. But it's hard for someone from I don't know Africa or the Middle East to just like buy $15 worth of Google stock. I don't think that's the easiest thing in the world. But with blockchain, it is the easiest thing in the world.
Hmm. Yeah, blockchain changes the game. That's for sure.
It really does. It really does. And I don't think that obviously we haven't scraped the surface yet. And I mean, God knows what's going to happen. I think there's going to be massive changes because of it. But I'm also I'm also dead certain that nobody knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think we're all excited to find out.
Yeah.
So, how can our listeners stay involved and follow along with what you're working on?
Well, so we, like I said, we just launched the cannabis infused beverage, which are cannabis derived, so they're in the regulated system in California. So they are for sale at Green Goddess in Venice. You should check it out. The staff there is incredible. It's like a super cute and very very well informed dispensary. You can also purchase our product at tbd-products.com if you want to do that, and that's the hemp derived edibles. But mainly follow us on Instagram or on Twitter, and you will be able to catch the news of what's happening with the project and the shadow project and the membership. And the tokens are also still minting, so they can check out our website and mint tokens at studio-tbd.io. So there's yeah, we have a bunch of small touch points out in the ether. The Instagram is probably more geared towards the cannabis products. The Twitter is more geared towards the Web3 initiatives, but there's an overlap.
Mhm. Beautiful. Well, thank you, Robert, for joining us. That was really an amazing conversation around cannabis and crypto, and you're doing some incredible work that takes both industries into account, which is rare today. But I think definitely a step in the right direction for the future of cannabis.
Yeah, thank you so much, dude. I mean, yeah, it's exciting times, and I'm super happy to be in both of them. The combo I think is really really interesting.
Absolutely. So you can download episodes of Design This Beyond the Dieline. Look for all of our episodes by going to cannabisradio.com or subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Until next time, always think beyond the Dieline.
The opinions expressed on this CannabisRadio.com program are those of the guests and hosts and do not necessarily reflect those of the staff and management of CannabisRadio.com. Any rebroadcast, republication, or retransmission of this program without proper consent is prohibited.